Hey everybody, welcome to the 30's perspective. It's your girl Sherelle Unique here, and we have Shane, and we're waiting for Alicia. So shout out to her, shout out to B Mike. Prayers up to him. He's handling family business right now, so we'll see him next week. All right, so we'll get into our icebreaker. Shane, you want to give us our icebreaker?
Yeah, we were just talking earlier just about music and entertainment in general, and I brought up the topic of how R&B. I just have this feeling that R&B will never be like it used to be. You know what I mean? Like I turn on the radio, and well, at least where I'm at, you don't hear any R&B at all. At least no current R&B. All they do is just play throwbacks. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes me feel like is R&B even a thing anymore? Are people making new contemporary R&B music? And if they are, how much auto tune are they using? I mean, does anybody really have any talent when it comes to like urban entertainment? You know what I mean?
I feel you. I hope not. And it sure looks bleak right now. It looks kind of hopeless, but I hope that is not the case. I'd like to think that, things come around full circle and we'll reach a point where that stuff will be cool again. But it's
Yeah,
like, how long does it have to be like gone before we really like miss it?
yeah. I mean, because last time we were discussing about how things kind of dumbed down when it comes to hip hop. It's like everything kind of gravitated to diggable planets and um, I want to say Dawes effects and all that stuff where people are actually writing lyrics and everyone had their own unique style all the way to what we have now, which is mumble rap and yeah, that's kind of what it is. You know what I mean? So it's
I,
like hip hop has gone downhill, R&B has all but disappeared. So what do we have left?
yeah.
What's left to our culture?
I think they created trap and B. Um, so it's like somewhere between R&B and trap music.
Mm,
Um,
I can't say I've heard that before.
I call it trap and B. Me and some friends call it trap and B, where it's, that R&B, like you're singing on a syncopation, like you have a lot of rhythm to your singing. It's not real powerful usually. It's just kind of that laid back uh type of stuff. Summer Walker, Gene Aiko, SZA, um, Chrisette Michelle did charades. That would be
Mhm.
charades and Ashton Martin music. Those are kind of more trap and B type songs.
I got
Um,
those.
so it's like that has almost replaced R&B.
Mm.
Um,
I
yeah,
guess I have to
that,
prepare myself when I go find it.
yeah, yeah. So it's that chill, laid back. Let me see, movies by Ashanti, um, Baby by Ashanti. Those got that trap and B feel.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah. I think Bone Thugs and Harmony kind of maybe ushered us into that.
I mean, because yeah, when they came out, they were very unique, and after them, there was no one else like them. So I thought they were kind of in a class by themselves.
I won't argue that, but when I say they kind of ushered us in, it's because they do the soft singy over a trap beat or a hip hop beat,
Oh, okay, I see.
syncopated
So
rhythm.
that's pretty much your best example.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
I feel like maybe they were the first to do it, maybe, and then it became an actual genre, which I don't think it was a genre before. Um, and now that's become it's happening too often where I'm like, okay, I want to hear some singing. Like I grew up hearing some singing and learning how to sing from those people who were singing.
Right.
It was so frustrating for me. Like I'm always pulling up YouTube stuff so I could just sing because it's a release.
It is. It is. Teddy Riley's birthday just passed not long ago.
He's excellent.
And yeah, it was I was just YouTube surfing and I came across what's his name? Neo. He did a birthday song for him, which was he was singing what was it? Tonight's the Night from that original album. Neo was singing that, and he did very well. You know what I mean?
Neo gets on my nerves.
He does.
But I like him. I like him. He's kind of whiny. He got a whiny tone, but I like him. But yeah, I hope R&B is not dead. I hope it comes back. I hope it's one of them things where it's like so many people miss it that it just comes back to us.
Yeah. You look at
I already mentioned this on a couple podcasts, but they have some of the Generation Z, these twins called Twins the New Trend. They're on YouTube, and they are watching some of the songs from back in the day. Most of it is like R&B stuff because they've never heard these songs at all.
Oh, okay. So I'm guessing these two are Zoomers or something.
Yeah, they are 22.
Okay. And they're being exposed to the stuff with substance for the first time.
The very first song I watched them do was I Will Always Love You, Whitney Houston. And it blew my mind because as an entertainer, I couldn't wrap my mind around somebody who has never heard I Will Always Love You.
Oh, you bring up names like Peabo Bryson. People will be like, who?
Right. I just saw Peabo Bryson in concert this year. Maybe last year. He was excellent.
Yeah, and the thing about artists like that from back in the day is like the way they sing, they sound in person the exact same way they do on track. You know what I mean? That it's like that's how much talent they have. Whereas a lot of these newer artists, it's like they got to go through all these digital processing just to come remotely close to what you would pick up on iTunes, you know?
I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I mean, you know, these days it's much less about talent, more about just being marketable, having a fan base.
And talent,
that's it.
Talent is what really, really builds the character in an individual too. Because I remember a long time ago, I was in Pittsburgh and I was working at the Southside Movie Theater, and there was these two little girls that came in, and they were professional Disney singers, right? And they came in and they was just singing some Little Mermaid songs, and I was listening to them, and I was like, just the tonal accuracy that they had, the pitch, everything, and it's like, oh yeah, they've been doing this before. That's how.
Oh, yeah, you really have to be an amazing singer to be doing that, for sure. For sure.
Like listening to them, I was like, hold on. I was just naming songs for them to sing from the movies, and they would just belt them out, and it's like I didn't want them to stop because it was so long since I heard real talent, you know?
Yeah. I feel you. So, R&B, I hope you never like just are extinct. I hope you're never extinct.
I hope so too. I mean, I mean, like I thank God for YouTube at least, because people are posting stuff like SWV, Escape, all the Blackstreet stuff, Eric Benet, Maxwell, Luther Vandross, People Bryson, Shantae Moore. I could go on and on,
Shantae Moore is still making music on the radio.
Huh?
Shantae Moore is still making music that's on the radio.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. She got this song called Real One. I really like that one. I can't think of the other song. She has another one on the radio right now too. So, all right, we're gonna move on. Main topic: emotional abuse.
Uh-oh.
Right.
I'm triggered.
You're triggered already?
Already, nah.
So, Shane, what is emotional abuse to you?
Emotional abuse is the type of abuse that leaves scars that you don't see.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? That's the type of beatdown that you can feel for years.
That's an excellent description. Excellent description.
That's how I see it.
I think my definition would be just manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
Emotional, mental,
gaslighting.
Manipulation. That looks like gaslighting. Oh no.
I guess a good example is you familiar with the whole Johnny Depp situation?
What happened with him?
Oh, you haven't heard about that?
What?
Well, he got fired from all his major roles because of the stuff that he went through with his wife Amber Heard.
What did he go through with her?
Well, she went around saying that he was physically abusive to her, right? And we're kind of in that era where we're living in where it's like believe all women and believe her without proof or anything like that. So basically, because of what she was saying, he was crucified in the media and slandered, and he got fired from everything that he was attached to. Pirates of the Caribbean, Fantastic Beasts, all that big stuff. His career is pretty much shot at this point.
Oh my God. Is that why we haven't seen much of him?
Huh? That's why we haven't seen much of him, because of her.
I kind of feel like, and I didn't know what was going on, but I thought maybe he was getting tired of doing it, so he was throwing it, like going in there, not.
Screwed him up. She screwed him up because of the lies she was telling. Come to find out, she was the abuser. She was the one physically abusing him. She like threw a glass bottle at him that cut part of his finger off.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah. She was throwing punches at him, cussing him out. All this was caught on tape. Her admitting to all this abuse.
That's crazy.
And
so what do you mean it was caught on tape? Her admitting to it. Hey Alicia.
Hey guys.
Hi.
I think it's on YouTube. It was a recorded phone conversation.
Okay.
And she was talking about how, she's like he would pretty much bring up the stuff that she's been doing, right? And she would try to deflect away from it and give her entitlement and excuse of why she feels like what she did wasn't so bad. You know what I mean? How you doing tonight?
I'm gonna have to look into this. Do you know Johnny Depp's wife's name?
Amber Heard.
Amber Heard.
Yeah. Get this. So he was fired from all his roles, but she ended up getting a bonus, and she still is. She still has her role with the Aquaman, because she's that one character with the red hair in Aquaman.
Oh, that's Johnny Depp's wife?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
You know about the stuff that Johnny Depp was going through?
No. Like I heard like very little, but
yeah, Johnny Depp's wife was basically physically abusing him.
Oh.
He's been dealing with it, but she has come out in public and say that he was constantly physically abusing her. So because of the accusations that she made, he ended up losing all his roles and all his sponsors. His career is pretty much shot because of her. And it came out that everything that she said was a complete lie. In fact, she was like at the forefront of the Me Too movement.
At the forefront of the Me Too movement.
Well, I mean, as far as the whole cancel culture thing, you know. Meanwhile, she's the perpetrator.
That's the hard part about that kind of stuff, is because, you know, you want to take it seriously when it's true, but when it's not true, you can like cause damage to the other person and actually begin to abuse that person.
Tremendous damage. So he's no longer employed by Disney. He lost a whole lot behind all that. And he tried to sue for defamation, and he lost the case because I guess the judge decided that all the claims against him were sustained, even though that there is all kinds of evidence that they're all false.
That's wild.
So, Alicia, we mentioned what is emotional abuse?
Emotional?
Yep, that's tonight's episode. Emotional abuse.
We kind of talked about this before, but I feel like that whole Jada and what's his name?
Jada and Will.
August Alsina?
Yeah. August Alsina. I think that she emotionally abused him.
Okay. Elaborate.
I think that she preyed on his emotions. And she kind of she preyed on him. So she
because he was saying that, I mean, the way he was talking, he thought he might have had a possible future with her.
Yeah. So she fed him a dream, first off. But I feel that like emotional abuse, I feel can go both ways. It could be, when I say go both ways, meaning like, you know, how some people be like, oh, I was emotionally abused. Like, you know, I was you know, in a relationship where I was I was, you know, emotionally abused. Well, I look at a situation like Jada and what's his name as emotional abuse as well, because she abused her power first off as somebody that he came to and confided in with things that he was going through, and she preyed on it. She took his emotions and she used them literally against him. I mean, not in the way that, you know, most people think it is, where, you know, it's, you know, I'm beating you down with words, but she took his emotions and preyed on him. So at his most vulnerable time in his life. So for me, I look at it as that. I feel that's emotional abuse as well.
I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think when it comes to emotional abuse, unlike physical abuse, I think emotional abuse can be both intentional and unintentional. Mm-hmm. I think with physical abuse, it's like usually it's intentional. I'm here to beat on you.
Down mentally.
Definitely intentional, because it is an aspect of manipulation, and it's a sign of narcissism too, because usually if a person intentionally emotionally abuses somebody, it sometimes, well, specifically speaking for like people who have a NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, they actually feed off of the pain that they're causing a person. You know what I mean? So
you're saying that you think it's always intentional?
Well, I mean, if you hurt someone unintentionally, it's unintentional. So that's not abuse. That's just something that happened that you actually feel remorse for. So, I mean,
I understand that. I think when I think about it, and when I said that, I think some people have grown so accustomed to speaking or interacting in a toxic manner that they don't even realize that it's emotional abuse. For instance, I was talking with two family members, and I was kind of like the mediator. And one family member was in their 70s. The other family member was in their 50s. And they're trying to reconcile or trying to figure out how to communicate with each other. Well, the person in their 70s, it came to a realization that that person has always talked and had negative communication throughout 70 something years of her life, without knowing that it was negative, or without knowing that it was toxic, without knowing that, or paying attention to, or realizing that what you said hurt. Because this is just what they've become accustomed to in communication. So when I think of like sometimes it being unintentional emotional abuse, that's what I'm thinking of. Sometimes people have grown so accustomed, especially in families where there's no boundaries, we're all enmeshed. We get comfortable with communicating with each other in a certain way that you don't even realize that this is emotional abuse. Like if every time you talk to me, it's punitive. If every time you talk to me, it's don't do, this ain't gonna work, it's negative. That can become emotionally abusive, and you're not even trying to abuse me. Yeah. So that's what I was thinking.
I can definitely see that. I mean, yeah, you're right. That does exist in families, because, say for instance, say if you got a parent that kind of repeats what their parents have done in previous generations, so they feel like they could, like you said, talk down and just say things in a real authoritarian and hurtful manner, with the expectation of not being talked back to. You know what I mean? Because, like, you know, sometimes a child could feel like, you know, you're always saying I'm doing all this stuff wrong. What about the stuff that I'm doing right? To some parents, just asking that question is disrespect, and that will just invite more emotional abuse.
Yeah. I know with my kids at work, I will come down hard on them if they're not doing what they are supposed to do. But I try to make just as big of a deal when I notice that they are doing something. Like this girl, her room has been like disgusting for the longest time. Now I go up in her room today, it's still dirty, but her clothes are now in a trash bag. There is a pile of dirt that I could tell she swept it together. She didn't sweep it up and put it in the trash. But I made a big deal. I see what you're doing here. I see where you're going with this.
Right.
You know, I want to let her know I see the good. You what? You did your therapy appointment today and you've been running from appointments for months? Go ahead. I see you shining. So I'm trying to make sure that they hear that from me just as much as you better go to school or I'm coming at your neck. Like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's important, especially with young people, that you give some positive reinforcement, because you know, if you don't, you're just gonna build broken people, you know, broken adults later on.
I think
they're either gonna be they're either going to be real recessive to everything because they're so weak, or either they're going to be so angry that they're just going to pass off that emotional poison to the next generation.
Yeah. I think it's just as important with the elderly as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can affect the quality of livelihood they have by the way you communicate with them, making them feel like they can do things, or making it feel like they have power over certain things, and empowerment when you speak to them, as opposed to no, you can't, you're not, I'm not gonna let you. I think that adds to the mental breakdown of a person.
You always got to put positive and confidence in people at all walks of life, I think, because it's like we all have our moments to where we feel like we might be lacking. So having, some positive affirmations every once in a while that's actually meaningful, and not just, people just saying stuff just to sound nice. You know what I mean? I think that's really important, that people continue to build each other up, especially when it's really needed.
Yeah. So you had mentioned gaslighting earlier. For those who don't know, gaslighting is kind of like where you make people feel like they're crazy, like you try to alter their sense of reality. So they could say, Shane, I don't like when you speak to me, it's very dismissive. And you'll say, I'm trying to think of how you might respond in a gaslighting type of way. Oh, well, you act like you never do anything.
Right. Yeah, you flip it around.
You flip it around, you place blame, you try to, oh, that's old, why are you still talking about that? And you try to throw them off their game and mess up their sense of reality of how you're mistreating them.
And some people are really good at doing that. Like it's just second nature, to where they can just gaslight you and you don't see it coming. All you know is all of a sudden what you just said becomes meaningless because of how they responded.
I dated someone that was like that. And ironically, this old person, we actually had that conversation about that yesterday. And it was the same kind of thing of not realizing that it's gaslighting, not even knowing that it's gaslighting. It's sickening.
It is. I mean, I feel like it's a form of just straight up wickedness to make it seem like what you're experiencing is either invalid or minute, just minimized, not important. And another form of gaslighting is like when you try to confide in somebody and then they make the situation about them. They put themselves at the center of attention and forget about all your issues. So now they're trying to manipulate it and make it seem like now what they're going through is more important than what you're going through.
Yep.
One thing that I don't like, that I've noticed that people, some type of people do, it's along the lines of gaslighting, is where they will, it's better for me to put it in like a term type way. So say you start noticing that something that's going on with somebody, and you bring it to their attention.
Okay.
And you kind of bring how you feel into the situation. Like, okay, say for instance, like there's a situation with a family member, and the family member, you bring to the family, you bring to the attention, you bring the attention to what's going on to the family member, and the family member kind of brushes it off and thinks that you're absolutely nuts at what they see, at what you see. And it's like they kind of treat you like you're crazy, like you're digging too far, or you're doing too much. And it's like,
yeah, I've seen that before.
I'm like, wait a minute, I know I'm not crazy. Like it makes you feel, they make you feel crazy for the way that you feel. And it's like,
usually when people do that, they judge the situation from their own perspective. And how they see it. And if it doesn't seem logical from their perspective, then they'll respond however they respond. And there's actually a term for that. It's called solipsism. And that pretty much, that speaks to a mental point of origin, to where it's like, if you tell me something, if I've never experienced it, or if I've never seen it, then it's not real, or it's not relevant, or it's not important. And then I begin to project my worldview onto you.
Oh, I like that, Shane.
I'm like, I know I'm not crazy. Like they make you feel so nuts. Like they make, like, I know I just seen what I seen, and I and I understand that like sometimes people can read into things a little bit further, but a little bit more. But if you're not the only person that has brought this to this person's attention, and like, everybody else could see it but them, and then they try to make everybody else around them feel like they're crazy for bringing it up. Whatever the thing may be. Most of the time it's behavior that's brought up. And it's like, and I understand that mental health runs deep for some people, and sometimes it could be hard for people to see things because of their mental health. But in another breath, it's like, I don't really know if that's mental health. I just think you're just trying to get over. Like,
man, I struggle with that.
Sometimes that is the case, because let's face it, people are people, and sometimes people have a very difficult time taking themselves out of the equation. And they have to look at things from the way they see it, instead of first being objective and then being empathetic. You know what I mean? And then try to see things from another person's perspective to get a understanding of what's being said. Because if you always look at things from only your perspective, you're only going to understand what you know.
Right.
I guess it's a fine line of people knowing what they're doing, and then really honestly just being ignorant to this new wave of self-awareness and emotional and mental psychological abuse, because these things weren't things. There was a time when people didn't study this stuff, people didn't pay attention. These weren't things. You better go sit down and brush it off and get some tough skin, like.
And then what do you do if you can't develop that tough skin? Now you got to live with this emotional and mental damage. You know what I mean? And there's nobody to help you through it, because no one cared enough to figure out what it was.
So we talked about I know me and my family talk a lot about, me and my mom specifically talk a lot about like sociopaths. Anybody got access to the internet? They can read the definition of sociopath for the people.
Sociopath. Hold on.
I'll look it up. I can.
The other person can look up psychopath.
They have a sociopath versus psychopath.
All right.
The difference between sociopath and a psychopath. Do you want me to read the differences between?
Sure, why not?
Oh, go ahead. You want me to say?
Well,
Shane, while she's looking that up, can you look up narcissism and ego?
Okay.
while I just sit here and watch y'all.
Okay, narcissism, it's a personality disorder. How it comes about, I mean, it can develop in a lot of different ways. But it's an over-inflated infatuation with oneself, self-importance.
Mm.
And this self-importance can be so large to where it also has an adverse effect to their ego, like you had mentioned before. So a person can think that they are just the best thing out there and no one is better than them. But if something challenges their worldview to where they have even just a little bit of doubt, it's like the worst mental and emotional pain that person could feel. You know what I mean? But it comes back to, it's all about them. They're aware of how they feel about everything, but they are not in touch with the feelings or emotions with anybody around them. It doesn't compute. It doesn't even enter their mind. They don't even care.
So when I was looking here, it says that sociopaths are hot-headed. They act without thinking how others will be affected.
Mm-hmm.
Where psychopaths are more cold-hearted and calculating. They are carefully plot their moves and use aggression in a planned out way to get what they want.
Passive aggressiveness.
That's
Right.
evil.
Right.
So
So
the psychopath is planning the evil and the violence and the
right, where the sociopath just does without thinking of
impulsive.
yes.
It's autopilot for the most part. It's like they just pretty much, just my opinion, but I think like narcissistic people and sociopaths are pretty much on the same wavelength.
I did some research on the difference between a narcissist and a sociopath, and they said, I think it was ego. I think ego was the thing
Mm-hmm.
that that different,
or
the motivation. The
For
motivation for why they're doing what they're doing is different.
Right.
Because they said something about the narcissist wants to always, they want to do it, I guess, for themselves or to get fandemonium, maybe.
It's it's like a high for them. You know what I mean? So
for the like, narcissist or the sociopath?
The narcissist.
For the narcissist, the sociopath doesn't really care one way or the other. They just do what they do.
They do it for them. It's to satisfy them. Where mm-hmm. narcissists, they'll do it for them, but they will also do it for the clout.
Mm-hmm.
So it's saying here that psychopaths and sociopaths share a similar set of traits. People like to have a poor inner sense of right or wrong. Like this have a poor sense of right or wrong. They also cannot seem to understand or share other person's feelings, but there are some differences too. So the key difference between a psychopath and a sociopath is whether he or she has a conscience, the little voice inside that lets you know when you are doing something wrong. And it says psychopaths don't have a conscience. If he lies to you, he can steal your money and he won't feel any remorse about it. Where a sociopath typically has a conscience, but it's weak. They may know that taking your money is wrong, but they might feel some type of guilt or remorse
after the fact.
Stop their behavior.
That's very close.
Very close.
Have any of you guys ran into a narcissist? Start there.
Girl.
Yeah.
Lack of empathy and the ability to stand in somebody else's shoes and understand how they feel.
I mean,
similarity.
Like I've learned to identify when I'm faced with a narcissist. I mean, after dealing with some of them. But one thing is with a narcissist, it's like they don't really have any original thought. They copy and they mimic other people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So there's that, and plus they're very self-sabotaging too. It's like they can't get out of their own way, and I think that's part of why they copy other people, because they can't find their own original way to get anywhere in life. You know what I mean?
They're annoying.
Yeah, and one thing is they do this weird thing to where they just have this blank stare. I don't know if y'all know what I'm talking about, but it's
I don't know
like,
if I've ever witnessed that, but now that you mentioned it, I'm gonna pay attention to that.
yeah, it's like they just have this stare like there's nobody home. You know what I mean? But at the same time, usually when they're having that stare, there's some things cooking upstairs, or where they're just thinking about the next thing that they're going to do to get their narcissistic supply, or how they're going to feed off of whoever their source is. You know, because there's things that narcissists do, you know, when they target somebody. They can, you know, endear themselves to someone by a lot, you know what I mean? And they'll play little mind games to where it's like one moment they're like, they treat that person like they're going to be their best friend, or you know, whatever, and then the next moment they go through this discard phase to where it's like they just throw this person.
They're done with you, they're on to the next person to make
Right.
them feel
But
important.
that's just the act, because they want the reaction of the emotional abuse, you know what I mean? And when they see that, they kind of get this high off of it, and then they just kind of repeat the cycle as needed.
Yeah.
I mean, narcissists really don't typically move on until either A, the person that they're getting their supply off of is completely destroyed, or if the person that is the victim of the narcissist eventually just moves on and cuts that person off cold turkey. Then they know, okay, I can't tap this person anymore. Let me go find another victim.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot. I mean, like, I typically can like pick out that narcissist person, that person who's very self-absorbed. And I kind of like I'm there's a type of people that I just flock away from.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can't do people like that, the ones that are always looking for that center of attention type thing, and they're always like, oh, I can't.
Yeah.
So typically try to be away from them type of people.
Just run. Just run.
Right. Right.
I looked up some more traits. They tend to be conversation hoarders.
So I was just in there reading like the whole narcissist.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you can read it.
So like their traits are rule breaker, boundary violator, false image, projection, entitlement, charmer, conversation interrupter, conversation hoarder. The narcissist love to talk about him or herself and don't, give a chance to take like for a two-way conversation. It's always all about them.
Yeah.
And they kind of like turn everything into them. Like, have you ever had like a moment where you were sitting there and you needed somebody to talk to? So like, you call one of your friends or you call somebody and you're just kind of like want to vent and talk. And then the whole conversation turns into them and their problem. And you're like, and you don't want to feel like you're a horrible person for not listening to them. And you are listening to them, but it's like, bruh, I called to talk to you and you took over the whole conversation, and like
it never swings back.
Never,
It never swings back to you or what you had going on. It
right.
just that gets lost in the shadows.
Mm-hmm. Another one too. I mean that false image projection. That's a big one because when a narcissist targets an individual, um, they begin to do this thing to where they could turn all your friends and family against you by making them seem like the good person, and then the victim is the one that actually has the problem.
Right.
You know,
It's wild. I
it,
personally like these people. These type of people are very frustrating.
mm-hmm.
I don't feel like they're not like you just throw them away. Like we all have that one friend. And what's crazy? You know what else they say though?
Mm.
This is typically a trait of men.
Could be.
Well, no, I'm just reading with like what it says on here, like narcissists.
From where you found it.
Huh?
I'm sorry. Say it again. You reading it from where?
Google.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think narcissism. I mean, because there's two types of narcissism. There's overt and covert. That could be a trait of anybody.
Yeah. Well, no, they're not saying they're just saying that it's typically it's more common in men.
That could be.
I can see that in some ways, only because, and I'm thinking like men are more athletic, and they're more into like competing, and so in that you have to have this grandiose kind of mentality. I think it doesn't have to be braggadocious, but I think oftentimes it is. And so I can see men being in a position where they have to talk themselves up. They have to think of themselves first. They have to put themselves first in order to be the greatest in these kind of situations, if that makes sense. Where women are taught to be more like nurturing. So we're taught to usually, and I'm speaking generally, usually taught to be more humble. So we have to humble down in order to be nurturers or to take care of our future kids, or we're taught to be more meek and modest in general, when men are taught to be more like, ha, look at me, I'm the greatest, I'm the best.
Yeah. Those are good examples. I think it really starts with the atmosphere that the person is in, because I don't think a lot of people set out to become narcissists. I think some of them become narcissists because, like, say if you have a person that grows up in a household where everybody is antagonizing and emotionally and mentally abusive to each other all the time, then that disorder can actually manifest itself.
Do you think there are narcissistic moments in a person's world?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm thinking like,
I think everybody has a little bit of narcissist in them, and it comes out in different points in time. And I'm not saying this in like like narcissist, it's like a bad, but I think it becomes a bad thing when it overtakes and overpowers your life. It becomes your mission in life to outdo everybody that you come in contact with. So I think I think we've all had our own narcissistic moments, if that makes sense. Where we kind of boasted and made ourselves above, whether, and I think a lot of it is phases of life. Like, you don't see rarely, and I'll speak to even like, some of the wealthy people that I know, like you don't hear older like rich people or wealthy people like kind of talk about their money and talk about who they are and their powers and their this and their that. You don't hear people like that talk about that like that. You hear these young kids always feeling like they have to like project who they are. Is it they're in that phase of life of where they have to like let people know who they are, what they got, how they got it, you know, what they have, stuff like that, where, you know,
not just project it too, but really, really push that image like,
right.
Okay, this is who I am and you can't challenge it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And I that's why I say like I feel like it's also in phases of life.
Right.
Like I don't you and maybe that's just me, but I'm just speaking to what I see. Like I've never seen that.
I think those phases is more ego than it is like real narcissism.
Mhm.
Like real narcissism, that's just what that person is. You know what I mean? Like I'll give an example. Like a narcissist will blame a person for what they're doing. You know, like say if you got one person accusing another person of cheating, meanwhile they're the one that's actually cheating.
Mm-hmm.
I think wouldn't that be more like a sociopath though?
Possibly.
I was thinking of narcissistic moment, like for instance, I think like when you're in your teens or early 20s, and there's a little bit of an inability to consider others unless you've been taught to. You're in a kind of narcissistic space in your life. Not all, obviously, not all teens, but
yeah, but I put them more in like a sociopath type of realm.
I see that kind of behavior in a lot of these sitcoms, to where like the kids is like, I was watching what was it called? Madam Secretary. It's a pretty good show. And it's about this lady. She is, you know, the Secretary of Defense, right?
mm-hmm.
And her husband works for the NSA. Both of them have jobs that they can't actually talk about. Meanwhile, their kids are the most spoiled brats on the planet, because they want to whine and complain when their parents can't do this and can't do that. And, you know, meanwhile, these people are trying to hold back the fate of the free world from falling apart each and every day.
And the kids don't know what they're doing?
Yeah, no, the kids don't know what they're doing. And then, and the thing is, just like when the kids start to get a whiff of what they're doing, now they want to criticize their parents. You know, it's like, the one daughter was so entitled that she kind of looked down on her mother for taking part in torture, you know, not knowing the details of what happened during that classified mission. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like you could look at torture as something like highly unethical. And I mean, if you want to look through the lens of, you know, torture is just ethically wrong, you know, it's like, okay, why is this person being tortured? Is this to prevent the death of millions? What do you do? You know what I mean? I mean, what did this person do to deserve being tortured? I mean, come to find out, you know, the guy that got tortured did kill a lot of people. And was about to kill a whole lot more. But it's like when children don't have a point of reference of yeah, I think that's what it is. They just don't have a point of reference. Their sight is just very limited. They don't see the big picture.
I think a lot of it just has to do with like their inexperience of life. Because I mean, I think we've all have had those moments where we have looked at an adult that's older than us, and we have found out some of the things that they have done in their life, and we kind of quickly judge. But then when we're met with something now that we're older, and it's like, oh, I get where so and so was coming from at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Because now we have a sense of life and we understand a little bit more.
Yeah, the generations can be tricky too, because it's like, say, when parents raise kids and they're going off of the framework of how they're raised.
Yeah.
A lot of times, what's not taken into account is the world that the children are entering is a whole brand new world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like this day and age, it's cool to be narcissistic. It's cool to be a sociopath. You get more likes, more clout, more followers, all that stuff when you are those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about career too, because I mentioned athletics earlier, but you know, even being an entertainer, that's a world where, like I said, it's cool, or it's better to be more of a narcissistic type of individual.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm faced with that in my singing business. Like I have to be promoting myself constantly, telling people what I'm doing, posting it all the time, interjecting with my business card, and you know, it's a fine line.
Yeah, it's marketing almost. But I agree with what you're saying, because it kind of reminded me, this happened a long time ago. And I think this was talked about on a show kind of like TMZ. It was about Britney Spears when, when she was in, in her prime, about how she was at some hotel that she had rented out, and I guess the room wasn't set up exactly, the main suite wasn't set up exactly how she wanted, and like a bunch of people lost their jobs behind it over something petty, like, all the red M&Ms was not taken out of the bowl, or you know what I mean.
Oh God. Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't think a lot of people have found that balance or even care to.
I can't imagine being so rich.
Because it was accepted. It's acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
In that arena, it absolutely is.
Right. So when you have something that is accepted and not challenged, of course, it's going to continue, and it's going to be okay for it to continue.
Yeah.
Because there's no consequences.
Right.
Nope. Nobody's challenging.
It doesn't ever necessarily. I mean, I guess you can consider like not having followers or not having people around as like a consequence. Excuse me, but you can't be a narcissist if people don't follow you or look up to you or admire you or see you as being something great. You can't be a narcissist, because at that point there's nobody to displease.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like those type of people need to have some type of acceptance.
Yeah, they need to be looked up to. They can't be them without that crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So then what about the sociopath? We did a little focusing on the narcissist. What about the sociopath? Have either of you ran into the sociopath? I know for sure I have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, what was your perspective on that? Like, what was your experience when you ran into the sociopath?
I was dating a sociopath.
Oh.
To elaborate.
I will. Just know, like you said, the consciousness of whether you're hurting a person, you don't even notice it. You don't even take it in. Or maybe you take it in, but you take it in much later after the damage is done. It's not as calculated as the psychopath, but is you're just behaving, I guess, erratically, and you're hurting feelings as you go along. And Yeah, definitely dated a couple sociopaths in my day. Definitely.
What about you?
Me, I don't know. I think the person I was with was kind of a lot of those things rolled up into one.
I was gonna say that.
Huh?
Big time. I was gonna go to the psychopath separately, but I feel you. I feel you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the psychopath part didn't pop up until they felt like they were emboldened to reinforce the wrong that they know they did. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Almost like, yeah, I did this and here's why.
Mm-hmm. And
But
then they think
other
that
than
here's
that,
why is enough.
yeah. Other than that, everything else was covert, you know. Everything
Yeah.
else was really covert. And the thing about the narcissist that I'm not sure a lot of people know is you don't readily recognize a narcissist because the things that they do is so under the radar compared to someone that you can catch trying to get over. You know what I mean?
Yep. It says that they are charming.
Yeah.
It's so
So
under
it takes much longer to even identify.
it can take years to identify if you don't know what to look for. I mean, if you're not educated on a topic, you could be with a narcissist for a few years and before and you start to realize it after, you know, it affects your health and your mental well-being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to go back to the gaslighting thing. Like, we're kind of all over the place,
That's
but
okay.
I just thought of another point, like where they really try to break you down.
Oh yeah.
They really try to break you down. Like, you could make mention of something you want to change, then they start attacking your character.
Yep. Or they try to flip it around like, well, if something's wrong with me, you got to admit something's wrong with you too.
Right. Like you can't fix the problem that's wrong with them and then move on to the problem wrong with you.
It's tit for tat.
Yep. Big time.
And then sometimes they can do a whole lot of silent treatment for no reason too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, my one ex. Man, if I knew what I know now, he would have never been in the realm.
Preach.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm telling you, because he, okay, so I'm gonna do some.
If I knew what I knew what I knew now, I would have more hair.
So, the situation with him that kind of like, kind of like what I was telling you before with the whole gaslighting situation, where like you're kind of like you bring up a situation and somebody makes you feel crazy. Like I know good and well. So when I was dating him, I won't mention no names, but when I was dating him, we were together not long, and he did a lot of lying, and it was a lot of like stupid.
Yeah,
and it was like
that.
It was like, and you would catch that, I'd catch him in his lie, and it would just be like, oh, he did that because.
Yep.
And I was like, you know how like you kind of let it go because it's just a little lie. It's not a big lie. It's a little lie. You caught him in it. Talked about it. Let it go. So with me and him, it just kept being little lies. Like it kept being little things, and it was just dumb things. Like it was stupid. Like when I say stupid, meaning like it would be as simple as, hey, I had my candy bar sitting over here. Do you know where it went? No, you must have misplaced it.
Right.
And it's like, you ate it. Just say you freaking ate it. Like, it's not even that, like,
what
it's
about
not that serious. So, but what the little lies turned into,
mm-hmm.
started to become big things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, like the whole reason why me and him ended up breaking up is because I found out he was cheating on me. And the way that I found out that he was cheating on me is my doctor told me he was cheating on me.
Mm-hmm.
So I confronted him about it. And you would have thought that I just told him that I gave him something.
Man.
Yep, it goes back to that thing I was talking about where they start accusing you of what they're doing.
And I'm like,
right.
Yo, like I have never felt so frustrated. And like, I'm not a person to like, put my hands on a man. I don't do that because, I don't believe in that. Females are different. But anyways, I was so frustrated because like I'm sitting here having this conversation knowing good and well that I didn't do it. It made me feel crazy. Like I had to literally sit back and think, and I'm like, why am I sitting here beating myself up over something that I know I did not do? It was the craziest thing. It took him almost 3 years later to come back to me and apologize.
Mm.
Oh my God.
And even at that 3-year mark, whenever he came back and apologized because he had started going to therapy and dealing with things in himself, is the whole reason on why he came and apologized.
Well, that I see that as accomplishment because usually narcissists don't apologize. They still see what they did as not being a big deal, no matter how bad it is.
I don't know I don't know him anymore. So I don't know if he did it just because or if he did it under, because it says that sociopaths, they have a little conscience, but not really. So for me, I just every time I think about it, I get mad. I don't even want to talk about it no more. You won't make me go off.
I know.
Girl, it's just because it's like it's very frustrating, and it's like it's a time in your life where you have to like come to grips with certain things that people have done.
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
You know what? It messes with you mentally on such a huge level because you're trying to figure out what you did all the time, like what you did wrong. Or if it's not like what you did wrong, you're trying to understand how the conversation went left. How did we get here? Why did this make sense to you to say this to me? Like it's never settling when you're on the victim side of it. You're never settled in your spirit because you either feel at fault, like maybe you said something wrong, or maybe you need to fix this, or you're trying to understand how the conversation went left, or like you are always like discombobulated when you're emotionally abused. It really messes with your mind and your self-esteem.
Yeah, it's really debilitating. I mean, especially when it gets to the point where they make you feel like you want to respond to these issues physically, but you can't.
Yeah. Yep.
You want and they know where you're at because they're observant. Narcissists are really, really observant. They'll watch every little thing, and that's how they like feed off of these reactions. It's like they feel like they need to keep a person wound up in their web,
Yeah. What about the psychopath? Anybody ran into a real live psychopath?
Nope, can't say I have.
Now you said the psychopath is hot-headed, right? So basically, you'd be like the type of person that kind of flies off the handle at the drop of a hat.
Yeah,
I can see that.
yeah. I can't say that. And if I have, I don't know him anymore.
I think like so there's this homicide situation that occurred in my hometown, and I've been following it just because I knew somebody that was loosely involved. They wasn't involved in like the killing part, but they knew the person. They like was the last person that talked to that person before they passed away, right? So because I know that, I've been kind of loosely following it, and it appeared they haven't found the person who actually did it, who actually killed the girl. But as I've been loosely following it, I kind of feel like I know who did it, right? Mm-hmm. And there's some videos I've been watching, because this person goes live on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram. They behave in a very psychopathic kind of way. And this was the girl's, this was somebody that was related to the girl who passed. I mean, not related, but knew the girl who passed. So I'm like, oh, this dude did it. I know he did it. Like, I know, like I could feel it in my gut. You know what I'm saying? And then there's somebody out of town who's posting like videos online, YouTube videos, like, did this person do it? Because look at how he's behaving. Look how he, they were this, they were connected in this way. So like I've been following this whole situation. It's crazy to watch a real live. If he did not do it, he knows who did it, or he is definitely a psychopath. I'm very convinced. But it's crazy when you watch that.
I mean, I've only known of one from a distance.
Yeah, from a distance.
I knew that person in high school. I don't know them now. That was like 14 years ago. Did they act like this in high school? Not really. They were more of like the quiet type of person. And then, so I don't know if you heard of like a few, this was probably about 4 years ago. There was an incident in Plum at the convenience store called Bill's Pharmacy. And this girl and her husband apparently got into it with this other car full of people. And later on that day, she ended up being found at her house and like at her side door, dead. And her husband kept blaming this group of people. They had like a reward thing out for these people. If you've seen them in this car, they were whatever. But nobody suspected the husband. Not one person. And I said, just, like, how like people just speculate. Mm-hmm. I was just like, I don't know if it wasn't people in that car. It seems like it's a little bit closer to home than that. Just because there was no forced entry. There was no, like, nothing was taken. The kids were gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just seemed like everything kind of like lined up way too well. So, and, come to find out, it was the husband. He ended up killing her. For what? Nobody knows. Like, there was no motive. That's the whole reason. Like, when they were talking about, they were like, the whole reason why they never suspected him, because there was no like
motive.
They were fighting. She was leaving. There was insurance policy, nothing. Like it was just nothing. Like they couldn't figure out.
The beans on why he did it?
Huh?
Did he ever say why he did it?
Nope.
Wow.
Nope.
There was something going on between them because murder just don't fall out the sky.
Yeah.
Unless crazy.
Unless you gotta get this off your chest. Mm-hmm. Like you've been wanting to do this to somebody for so long. and you gotta get it out your system. And that particular day was the person was right there, and you was like, it's gonna be you today.
I kind of like you, Sherelle, I loosely followed it for a while, but after they had mentioned that it was him, I stopped following it. So as far as like, they never said there was a motive. Last time I read up on it, they never said there was like a motive for his actions. And like, I didn't read any further if they ever found out or if he ever told or anything. So don't get me to line. He might've said something. I just never followed it after it came out that he was the one. Like her parents had like his $50,000 reward leading to somebody's arrest in the case. Like it was a big thing for a while, and it was just like, wow, that's craziness. Like people are really that fucking crazy
walking around here. I watched 2020, and I usually don't be watching stuff like this because I like to keep after work. I kind of like after work to be drama free, whimsical, light comedy, chilling, action. Not that kind of action, but you know. But anyway, I found myself watching 2020, and there's the similar story that you just told, Alicia, where the wife and the children came up missing. And then the husband was the last person.
That guy? You talking about the one guy from Texas?
I don't know where it was. That he killed a wife and
two daughters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that same story?
Yeah, he's fucking nuts. I read up on that story. That nigga's crazy. Yo, he was bad shit crazy. But now all over his they had some marital issues though.
Yeah, they had some marital issues. But what I noticed and what the guy on the video said was he was talking the day that they were looking for him, he was kind of, his body language was like this. And he's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe she went to the gym. I know when I last saw her, this and this and that, but his body language he was holding himself in, and they said that's a sign because you're trying to contain something. You're trying to hold yourself together. You're trying to hold whatever in and compose yourself. And then the other sign also was he brought everything back to him. His conversation was back to him. Not about the girls, not about where his wife could be, not about he love his kids, please find my... he brought it, everything he said, he turned it around back to him. And like that, the one I'm following in my hometown, dude is doing the same thing. First part of what he said was, I know y'all want to know what I think about this.
Why would somebody say something like that?
Right. Or, I'm sorry I wasn't there when you needed me to be. That's what you got to say when somebody you're close to.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying that's what you got to say when somebody you're close to goes missing or dies tragically. Those are the words you start out with.
Yeah, that doesn't sound really compassionate at all.
Mm-mm. And what's scary is these people are among us. And as these situations occur, they're breeding more people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild. Like, to be honest with you, like,
crazy people breeding crazy people.
Amen to that one.
Crazy situations breeding crazy people.
you know, it's a scary world we live in. Like, honestly, like I had this conversation with a friend of mine not too long ago about how, like, before, it just seems like growing up, like you could say something to somebody without having to worry about if they might follow you home and kill you. Not saying that it wasn't a worry, you know,
Mm-hmm.
back then or something, but before you could say something to somebody without having that fear of.
I,
But
I
then, but then,
experienced something like that. Um, I mean, not me directly. I was living in Oakland, and
like Oakland, where like
like
Oakland.
I want to say, yeah, I've been out of Pittsburgh so long. I'm trying to
Oh,
remember.
so it was like Oakland and Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
Okay, I
yeah.
didn't
So
know if you meant like Oakland, California.
no,
Like,
no,
okay.
Oakland and Pittsburgh. Um, yeah, I can't remember the exact area, but anyway, um, I was living in this apartment house, and there was this young 18-year-old girl that lived in the floor directly above mine. So she was the apartment above mine, and she was young and she was cute and she knew it, right? And I guess some of the people in that same apartment building was either from a halfway house or had issues that they're coping with, stuff like that. And also sometimes outside of that building you might have your homeless people every so often. So there's this one bum or a homeless person that sits out there every so often, and he seen the girl and paid her a compliment, and he was like, "Hey, you a pretty young lady, right?" And she responded to him in a very sarcastic and mean-spirited way, pretty much rejecting his compliment. And he didn't take it very well, so he followed her in the building and cut her throat, and she bled to death right in front of her door.
Crazy.
And I was like, I was just talking to this girl the other day, and now she's dead because of what she said to the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how, because you're thinking that. Mm-hmm. It's a couple other people that's thinking that now they have mental health problems,
mm-hmm.
and never came out of that. You get what I'm saying? Like,
right.
You might have thought about it and never thought about it again, or somebody else thought about it. Now they obsessing over it. Now they got anxiety and depression. And
mm-hmm. I mean, the way I was thinking about it was, you got to watch what you say to folks, because you don't know how they'll respond. I mean, that was my reaction, because you don't know.
Sometimes they leave you no choice.
Huh?
Sometimes they leave you no choice. Like, you could have just been like, "Oh, no, thank you," because he approached you and didn't like that you said no, thank you.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be as simple as that too.
But that's like that girl that got killed down at the one bar, and I want to say it was in Homewood.
I mean,
Galaxy.
I only know what she
Galaxy.
said. I
Was it the
know
Galaxy?
the person she was.
Where she rejected his drink?
Yep.
And he walked outside and killed her?
Yep.
Good grief.
Because she rejected his drink. That's crazy to me.
Is crazy.
Like, that's nonsense to me. But, like, you can't.
I mean, that just sounds like pure rage for whatever reason. You know what I mean? To just want to just kill somebody at the drop of a hat.
You've been wanting to kill somebody for some time. And she's just the one who
pushed the button that day.
Tipped you over the edge. You've been wanting to do this for some time. That's what I believe.
Mm-mm-mm.
I don't know. It's because I look at, like, you know, the Jeffrey Dahmers and the.
Oh, that dude was eating people though.
Oh, not Jeffrey. What is his name? Ted Bundy.
Okay, yeah.
And
Because Jeffrey Dahmer was
what's the other
killing
one? The
people.
other one that like had that cult of females. The frick is his name?
I think I know who you're talking about. I'm trying to remember it right now.
Where he made them believe that he was like Jesus. And
yeah.
He was like their savior. Like at one point in time, he was saying
washed him.
he was like what the frick is his name? I just watched a documentary on him. That dude was fucking
Charles Manson.
crazy. Huh? Charles Manson.
Okay,
yes.
yeah.
Yes. That dude was nuts. He was worse than Ted Bundy. Like he was nuts. He had a whole group of people believe. Oh man, had them believe all kinds of stuff. Like he wrote his own like Bible, and like he had people believe in aliens and that like
I don't understand how people could get caught up in stuff like that, to where they just believe utter nonsense and then reinforce that belief themselves. Because they do get to a point to where they start continuing the brainwashing on themselves.
I think.
Well, you know, whenever they all went to prison, right? Them women, when they went to prison, they had to put them all together.
Mm-hmm.
They had to live together, and like in the documentary, it was talking about how like they brought them together because they at first they separated them, but they weren't getting much from them. But when they brought them together and they started talking and filling them in on everything that transpired, they talked about so much. And that's what led them to convict him the way that they did. And it wasn't purposeful. They didn't purposefully like tell on him. They kind of like were telling their story. Oof.
I think, you know how you mentioned you don't know how they get like this? I think that brings about another conversation piece of, I think when it comes to emotional abuse, mental, physical abuse, they choose their victims.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
they're strategic about the ones who are intentional. Are strategic about who would be a good victim.
Like who's recessive or.
Well, have you ever watched any of like the documentaries on Ted Bundy and Charles Manson?
I have. Also, I you know, Harvey Weinstein, R. Kelly, all those type of like they are specific about who they choose.
Like Ted Bundy.
R. Kelly situation is weird because it's like, I guess the parents were involved too.
Yeah, on the R. Kelly.
Yeah, that was weird because it's like, how do you willingly submit your daughter to this man? You know.
Money will buy you anything you want.
If you get a person where they're vulnerable, they got financial problems, and you can get them out those financial problems. They might be a likely victim to whatever you're trying to do.
That's the same thing that whether we like it or not, that's the same thing that Michael Jackson did. He said his family, he wasn't guilty, but he was never guilty in a court of law. But we all know. We all know. I ain't stupid.
I mean, because they investigated this man for a solid decade and didn't find anything.
He was.
Can I just tell you that he was a genius?
He was very, very, very rich and very powerful.
And he was, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
he did buy the Beatles, so, and half of Sony.
Okay, and we're talking about a
All
man
of
who will
Motown.
stand on stage and people pass out voluntarily. He will put on a glove and niggas is screaming. Grown men are screaming.
TD Jakes do the same thing. Now let me stop.
TD Jakes.
I'm
Is that
just
what you said?
Let me
yeah,
tell you.
I'm just
So let me tell you. So whether we like it or not, Michael did the same thing. He took these families that were in need of medical assistance to save their children. And
Medical, financial, they have
right.
some kind of void. They see that predator sees the void.
I
so
don't
that
care.
makes the parents just as guilty.
You're right. Oh, I'm not knocking the parent. I'm not knocking the parent. I'm not making any type of justification for the parent whatsoever. But what I'm saying is when these people
Ain't no
find their victims,
I'm pimping out my sons.
right, right,
So they basically pimp out the whole family, like, or they traumatize and victimize the whole entire family.
mm-hmm.
Like,
okay,
or like if they know that kid or that person has been sexually violated, they know that person is a potential victim again. Or if they know you're emotionally traumatized or weak, they know they can emotionally abuse you again. You know.
So
they know.
Okay, so for you, Sherelle, when I watched the documentary on Ted Bundy used to pick his victims based on like the conversations he had with them. If he felt like he can manipulate you, he would. And if he felt like he couldn't get over on you on just that initial conversation, they're very intelligent people, which is what I've always wanted to do in my life, was study serial killers and, the whys. Why did you pick them? Why did you do what you did? Why did you kill her the way that you did? Why did you say the things that you did? Why did you go to a certain place? I wanted to always know the whys. So, reading up on and watching these documentaries on him, like, he picked women who were weak-minded. And when he said weak-minded, meaning women that he could easily manipulate, very charming. He was a very charming gentleman. He was also very good-looking, and most people who fall for physical attraction more than the knowing the individual, those are what he said he considered the weak-minded. They never saw anything deeper than the skin. So then he had said like the one woman that initially stayed with him the whole time, which was one of his victims that he never killed. It was not his wife. His wife ended up divorcing him and leaving with the kids. But the woman that stayed, that was intrigued by him, he never wanted her sexually. He never desired her in that way. She tried to help him get off of out of his charges, and he never sexually wanted her ever. And he stated because she was too strong-minded. It was somebody that he could never manipulate or tell any lie to, and she would believe. Like, I was like, wait, what? He said he couldn't get off on that. I was like, man, I feel if I ever slept with Ted Bundy, I feel like a complete idiot. I was like, I was like, hey. But no, he never like even like everything. Like I was watching like the one documentary that they had with him, and like how she did everything for this man. She put up money, cars, her life savings, she moved to where he was at, where he was imprisoned at, like everything. And he never loved her that way. And he told her that. And she didn't care. I was like, girl, what is wrong with you? Like,
you know what's another story of like abuse, like emotional abuse, I guess, or emotional. I think, and this is very like light, but like when I think of Batman and Joker, like he's manipulating Batman. He doesn't want to kill Batman. He just wants to make him crazy because he gets off
his skin
on making him crazy and get under the skin and make him he wants to make him do things that he doesn't really want to do. He wants to make him kill people. He wants to just do it off of he gets off on trying to make Batman crazy, and he's emotionally abusive.
Batman, I mean, if we're gonna go on that subject, Batman is just as bad as Joker. Because
okay,
I've listened to one person give their opinion on YouTube, and it made a lot of sense. Because Bruce Wayne has enough money. He has neighborhood changing level amount of money. But instead, he puts on a costume and goes beats up people for his own therapy. You know what I mean? So that right there is a psychopath in itself. And I think Joker is aware of that. You know what I mean?
I'm here for that. I'm here for that.
Because it's like if Bruce Wayne really wanted to clean up Gotham, all he has to do is gentrify the place. That's all he has to do. But instead, he just beats up people. You know what I mean? Circumvents the law for his own therapeutic reasons.
I'm here for it. That's funny. I really love Lego Batman because it really plays off their relationship with each other. It makes it like it's almost like they have a romantic relationship, but they don't. But Joker's conversing with Batman as if they do. Like, you know, you need me. I'm your favorite villain. Like, right. You know, like you need me. We're us. We're a duo. Like we're like we need each other. Like he's just.
You have to watch.
And Batman's like, I'm seeing other criminals. Like.
If you want to get deep into the psychology of Batman and Joker, you need to watch the animated movie, The Killing Joke. Look that up. That's a really good film, and the way it ends is really telling too.
I'm gonna have to check it out. It's a Batman Robin one. I mean, a Batman Joker one.
Yeah, okay. It's all animated, but it's definitely on the rated R side of things. So it's not like your WB type of cartoon. You know what I mean?
Okay. I feel it. Any final thoughts on emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse?
I feel that
when it comes to all those kind of things, just run.
I feel that our generation dealt with a lot of emotional abuse. And we really don't talk about that within the Black community. Our kids deal with a lot of our trauma, and we put our trauma, we throw our trauma out there more in our emotional abuse aspect, and it's not talked about, which, you know, holds a lot of weight.
Why do you feel like our generation has more?
Because we are, I feel we're in that in between Jen, we're the millennials, so we're in that in between where it was back in the day, do as I say, not as I do.
Mm-hmm.
Parent grow up where they were physically abused in a lot more ways than we even know. And they were emotionally abused in society. Um, and they got both aspects of it. And I think a lot of what they grew up with is their parents were trying to eliminate them running into that social emotional abuse in society, by kind of like beating that slave mentality, beating into us the right or wrong. And it kind of like, their parents beat them because, there are our grandparents and their parents seen slavery. They were in that time of that. So then it kind of just like washed down to our parents
Mm-hmm.
from, generation to generation now to them. And then to us, we received not so much. We received the physical, but not as much, I feel, as the emotional that we got, which kind of put us in a bad realm, which also I think, which kind of shifted our now society where we got away from that, punishment by like, a whooping.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're more into like timeout. Let's talk about it. And we're seeing the difference in our society with our, what are they called? Gen X, Generation X.
Mm.
Yeah. Crazy generation.
Yeah, to
Not
kind of pick up where you left off, you're right. In the Black community, it's not talked about much. It's more joked about, really.
mm-hmm.
Um, you've seen it in past time where comedians would just make jokes about how when they were young, they got beat with whatever their parents tripped over. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean? And and it's made up in the Black community that corporal punishment is humor, and there's something wrong with you if you never got that kind of punishment.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, there's a little bit wrong with all of us that did receive it, because um, it kind of made us numb to what it is to raise a child to get to a level of understanding things versus just raising a child to be in fear of things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel it.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
well, it's like, what would you rather have? A child that was raised to just um, be nothing but obedient at all costs, or a child that is raised to a level to where they have a mental awareness of who they are as a person and what value they have. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think that, to just kind of piggyback off what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
I think that like I don't, as a person who has a child, I don't feel that. I think there's a fine line between giving what is considered a, maybe I'm gonna say this wrong. So my daughter knows no.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Don't touch. That's two. Mommy said don't touch or I'm gonna smack your hand. Now, there's a difference from when my parents did it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It
Right.
was pow, 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 pow,
Yeah.
pow, pow.
Yeah.
You heard what I said the first time. Don't do it no more.
Mm-hmm.
there is there is never that level of critical thinking.
Yeah. There's no critical thought, no instruction. I
Right.
mean, because it's like, how often um do Black children get beat for something, not even knowing what they got beat for in the first place?
How many stories you got? Because like you said, it's funny to we comicalize it because it's like I was abused.
Like I got cousins that got beat, and that kind of discipline didn't work for them because they felt like whatever they do, they were going to get beat for anyway.
Ooh.
And when you get in that space, it's really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
You start doing whatever you want because you don't care. You're not, and then you're not really not learning any lessons.
Yeah, I mean, it's like
because you're
you don't have no example of if you're doing something right or not.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think when it comes to like my final thought, I agree with you guys. However, I do think that now we're in an age where we are paying more attention to the signs of emotional abuse, mental abuse. Do we take it seriously in the Black community? No, we don't. But I do think that there is more of a light shine on these different topics, which is a good thing. People are starting to pay attention to what a narcissist is, or maybe what gaslighting is. And you don't know about it until you hear about it, and then you start to pay attention, and then you're like, dang, I'm a victim of that. Like,
yeah,
so you can't combat it. You can't address what's not discussed or what you don't see. So I think there is a new wave of people paying a little more attention to these different things. You got Dr. Phil, you got Iyanla. Oprah was bringing on people to shine light on emotional and mental abuse. So I think that's a great thing, having these conversations and whatnot. Yeah.
No. Yeah. I agree, Sherelle. I think we got a lot of healing, and I will continue to say it. And people don't believe me, but I feel that until we heal as a people, we are not going to get what we need and want.
And we can't look for anybody else to heal us. We can't expect that to ever come. Just forget the whole reparations thing altogether.
Yeah. There's healing within ourselves that we have to do for ourselves, but then the Black man and the Black woman has to figure out a way to heal and reconcile with each other.
It is, because the way things had played out was we were harmed as a people, and then we turned that same harm on each other. It's been happening for hundreds of years. So now at this point, it's nobody else's responsibility to heal us but us. And the reality is there's no way we could get reparations anyway, because if we did, it would bankrupt the world. I mean, if you actually do the numbers, that's a lot of money. That's trillions of dollars. and it's like, let's say if the Black community got trillions of dollars tomorrow, what are we going to do with that money?
Buy Jordan. I'm playing.
I mean, that's everybody's first reaction, but I mean,
these wigs cost $400, $500.
It's like, we're going to get Jordans and new weaves, and I mean, that's enough money to start a new nation.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Never give us
Are we going to look at that kind of resources to do something like that?
No. Wakanda forever.
I think we got to mention too that when it comes to emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, it has no race, it has no gender. As we said, like Shane mentioned, being the victim of mental, emotional abuse. I mentioned being a victim of it. Alicia's mentioned being a victim of it. So men do it and women do it. So we got to keep our eyes open to that. All ages, races, genders, all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's just another part of the human condition.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it is. It's just something to be aware of and something to work through, you know.
Yeah.
And
so how do you work through it? Before we get off of here, we got 3 minutes.
All right. So what work through it as far as being a perpetrator or a victim?
Both.
Okay. In my opinion, to work through it being a victim is first get educated on what it is you're dealing with, because it's like you can't deal with something if you don't know what it is. And then after that, then you just have to deal with it based on what level you're at now. You know what I mean?
See, I'm gonna say this.
That's the way I can put it. As far as being a perpetrator of it, like if you find that if it's revealed that you have been doing wrong to people or to someone, usually some people, it's hard for them to take accountability that they did something horrible. You know, I think the first response is people get defensive because nobody wants to be accused of anything, especially if it's something negative. But beyond that, if you know that you're doing something, you have to accept that you've done it and focus more on fixing the problem. Because I think, just my opinion, I think learning how to solve a problem is better than focusing on trying to prove one's innocent.
Yeah.
Because trying to prove your position doesn't really accomplish anything, right or wrong, but working towards solving the problem does.
Yeah.
But if you don't feel like you have a problem,
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to fix something you don't feel that you have.
Yeah.
So for me,
that's the accountability part.
Right. So my thing is to work on the victim. So as a as a person, a lot of people need to work on self-esteem, self-awareness, and just self-care. You are more mentally, physically sharp on things like that. So you can catch things like that a lot easier. And I think that, like, we got to start building our youth up so that when they do deal with and come in contact with people like that, that they are aware, they have that self-awareness to know the difference of somebody who's harming them. Because how many times have we sat and looked at somebody as like, girl, how did you not know? Like, duh. But we don't realize, like, in their mind, they think that this is normal because they don't have that self-esteem, that self-awareness in them. So, we have to build each other, male and female, because women can be just as toxic as men can be. So, I'm all about the self-awareness, because nobody else, because I've am guilty of sitting back and not addressing another female in the situation that I see them in, and just saying something. And I know sometimes that can be kind of, for some people, it can be kind of people don't want to do that because you don't want to be in their business. It's not really being in their business, but sometimes we don't see things, and you have to bring self-awareness to them.
Yeah. I
I've
think
lost a lot of friends that way, but it didn't bother. I lost friends, family. Me and my cousin got into it because of her narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopath boyfriend. And me and her were not as close as we are, but she's now self-aware. Like, you know what I mean? She has the information that she needs that I gave her that she could see. She doesn't want to believe it, but I gave it to her. I know she could see it. She just don't know how to get herself out of it.
At the end of the day, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I think people, male or female, should be of the mindset to call out what's wrong and what's right. You know what I mean? Because I know in my life, I've seen a lot of people that will allow evil things to happen to people under the excuse that it's none of my business.
Yeah.
And
I think
that is wrong.
I think if you're the perpetrator and you want to change, you gotta do therapy or some kind of rehab or whatever. You gotta deal with whatever you got going on within you that has brought you to this point.
And I applaud anybody that does that.
Yeah, there's actually this dude on YouTube I watched, and he said, like, I was a sociopath. And he did a whole video about what he used to do to people, how he used to treat people. He wasn't like doing anything violent, but he used to treat people a certain kind of way. So just owning your stuff, being honest about that, and seeking therapy, rehab, whatever that you need to do, I think may and help to fill those voids, deal with whatever trauma you had going on. And then apologies and changed behavior is what would have to be worked on. And then if you're the victim, once again, therapy, hey. Also, trying not to bottle up what is going on, because sometimes we will have it and it's swirling in our heads and we don't say anything because you think you can handle it. And then by the time you said something, it's really gone too far. Yeah. So opening up to people, even if it's just being like, hey, yo, I need some prayer. I feel like this today, whatever, therapy. And then, like I said, I like to watch YouTube, watch movies, do audio books, whatever, on other people who might be going through what I'm going through. They'll give you ways to get out of certain situations. Or maybe you talk to an old head, somebody that's been there, done that, who can relate. So those are my thoughts.
Never mind.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This was the 30s perspective. Tonight's topic was abuse. We talked about a lot of different forms of abuse tonight. So if you find yourself in one of those situations, you can reach out. There is the Center for Victims here in Pittsburgh. You can reach out to them. They can help you. Or you can reach out to one of us. We have a couple social workers here on the line.
Hey. Always open.
Right. Same here. So, yeah, you can reach out to one of us and we can point you in the right direction, or we could just be a listening ear to you, because we done been through some things in our lives. Wow. So, all right. Shout out to Shane. Shout out to Alicia.
Woo woo. Hey.
Shout out to me, Sherelle Unique. Hey. All right. This is the 30s perspective. We out.
Yeah.
Good night.